I want to get to everyone's favorite esport, the most important esport of all. Chris is going to love this story. And that is chess. I threw this one in here just for you, Chris. And big moves in the chess esports world. Misfits Gaming, so esports org Misfits Gaming, signs chess grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. So Hikaru finds a new home in Misfits. Now, the reason that name might be familiar is TSM, another esports org, had previously signed Nakamura in August 2020, but they parted ways in June of 2021. And now, a year later, he has signed with Misfits. He averages 10,000 viewers a stream. He's the most viewed chess influencer on Twitch. Guys, the question for you now that, I feel like when we talk about what is an esport, and I don't want to go back to that level of basic, but there's some check boxes, right? And is one of the check boxes that if you have esports orgs competing over talent, right? Like one org signing talent away from another org, do we now have to take this very seriously, right? Like is that one of the boxes that says, okay, chess, legitimate esport, or is this a nothing story and, good for Hikaru? But I'm curious. I was just drawn to the idea that a chess player was being not fought over, but signed from one esports org to the other. Chris, we got to start with you. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, no. Oh, here comes the hot take. No, I mean, look, we're going to go through a recession very soon. We're all going to start playing Monopoly. Someone's going to be really good at Monopoly, and now we're going to make that person esports, character. Like, just stop. At the end of the day, really happy for this guy. Go get yours. But it's just too niche of a market. And, at the end of the day, unless Queen's Gambit comes out with a sequel, the market outside of esports and gaming doesn't necessarily care, I don't think. Or it's just not that big of enough of a market to justify perhaps, the financial investment into a chess streamer. I'm sure this gentleman is very entertaining. I'm sure he's super talented, clearly. But is that what's going to be having, a daily viewer ship that you can then put sponsorship money behind and that translates to some real money out in the real world? I just don't think so.
It's interesting. I actually kind of agree with Chris, but for different reasons, or there's a point where I disagree. I agree with you that I don't think this is necessarily going to put chess on the map. What I think is this is Misfits looking in their crayon box or in their tool shed and saying, hey, there's actually an audience here, a group of people here that we're not already reaching. Let's sign the guy because for the exact reason of our sponsorship sales might benefit because now we have a different demographic or a different, different breadth of capabilities. So I'm kind of aligned with you, but I think for different reasons there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, to Chris's point, someone playing Monopoly or other niche games, niche communities. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily esports. Doesn't mean that they're not. And I'm open to being convinced that they are. But I think it's more about attracting new audiences and not just being stuck in first-person shooters or other types of more traditional games.
I don't know if I would call chess a niche game. I mean, it's definitely a game that everyone on the planet largely knows. Maybe it is definitely niche.
Any esport.
Yeah, it is definitely niche as an esport, I guess. But everyone knows chess. So yeah, I mean, I think I would love to see more data. I would love, maybe a Newzoo report or something like that with just around the streaming data. Because I would be interested to see chess versus some of the other things that we consider less niche that maybe aren't.
Or a YouGov report.
Well, YouGov report would be better, but
we put our foil hats on, guys. And I'm curious, do you think he's getting a bigger deal from Misfits than he got at TSM, dollar-wise, right? Is he making more money with Misfits than with TSM? Or do you think because the hype around chess has sort of died down a little bit, to Chris's point, there's, Queen's Gambit sort of put chess on the mainstream map, that this is a smaller deal? Who here thinks it's a bigger deal than the TSM one?
It's probably larger if you consider sponsorship revenue and other earned opportunities. But as far as cash retainer, cash up front, I got to say it's definitely smaller. This guy went over a year without being signed and wasn't even signed for a full year in the first place. Great that he went to another tier one org, but The last I checked the Forbes rankings, I thought TSM was significantly higher than Misfits also on that. No disrespect to either of them. They're killing it respectively. But, I don't think it was necessarily a lateral move. And also the timing. You can't argue against that timing. That's like, to your point, Paul, Queen's Gambit at its height when he was signed to TSM, not so much now, though they did just come out with that. I hope I'm not stealing a story, but Netflix is coming out with that. Queen's, I'll shut up. I'll shut up then.
But it's okay.
Perfect transition.
Perfect transition. So smooth. Issei says, like Jimmy said, I think they're just expanding their reach. This is true. Samuel says, agree, Jimmy. I can see the chess enthusiast being a little bit older with more discretionary income. I'm sure there's data around that, and that's the kind of study that YouGov does. And when you're looking for, this is the kind of interesting thing. I talk about this all the time in terms of the actionable data, right? Like if you're a brand and you're like, hey, should we sponsor, Hikaru, right? Should we be putting our brand next to him? You would want to know something like this, right? Like, does his audience, are they older? Do they have more money to spend? It's one thing to guess. It's one thing to say, yeah, probably because it's chess, and it's another thing to actually know. But yeah, it's an interesting point. It definitely would have an impact. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Spot on, Paul. I mean, I'd say was it Sam's hypothesis about their older demographic. But they're probably not as many on Twitch by that same logic. So it's, it is, I think Jimmy's original point is expanding the circle of Twitch, people who are on Twitch and other things they might be interested in, other hobbies they may have. And I guess it's splitting hairs here, but is chess an esport? I know you had this conversation.
Oh my God.
I thought the video game thing, I thought video games had to be core. I get why esports companies are owning other content on Twitch, including competitive chess. But I
want to hear Chris's take. I feel like we've all
So I'll put it to you like this. The answer is no, because it causes a slippery slope where poker is played online. It is a game that you can play with other people and you need skill. So are we now going to adopt that just to ensure that, we can prove some kind of valuation for our company? No. I mean, it is a game. I'm glad that people are enjoying it, but to call it esport, I do think is a little bit of a stretch. However, we're constantly adapting the definition as we try to find our audience. So we can be creative now, but I do think, 10 years from now, we're going to be very confident what an esport actually is.
I mean, it sounds like you need to define a gate that excludes chess, right? If that's the belief. And so what is that gate, right? What does an esport have to have that chess does not have?
I guess the question is it the video game piece that you have a problem with, Chris, or is it the competitive piece? Because someone who's streaming a single player game, is that an esport? Does it matter? If for Twitch, I mean, we talk about it in terms of the gaming industry and digital entertainment. I guess, does it matter how we strictly define esport?
I would put speedrunning as an esport before I put chess, only from the perspective of I can take a chessboard, which I actually have behind me somewhere, and I can play that without a video game console or a PC. That would be my gatekeeping. Can I play it without using a video game console or PC? Yes or no?
And within the YouGov dictionary, we describe it as organized competitive video games. That's what an esport is. And then gaming content, streamed or otherwise, is a different animal.
Got it. I'm totally fair with having those very formulaic definitions, and I don't even disagree with them. But then I come back to does it matter? Why do we have to define those? Right? When we're talking about Twitch,
they definitely own all of that for sure.
Exactly.
They can do quality broadcast. They can own various talents across X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I mean, as a business, you can be in different business lines. There's nothing stopping you, but I think the definition is important just so that when we talk about it, we're all sort of on the same page. These definitions do matter from a ability to communicate as an industry effectively, I think.